Hello there and welcome to Chipola College Television. Royce Reagan with Chipola Talks. Got a guy here that not only can talk with his mouth, he can talk with his computer and with his knowledge of TV. He's from Channel 4 in Dothan. Let's see who we got. Who do I have with me today?
I'm Sean Sporman, producer for WTBY.
Producer. Now, what does the producer mean? What does that mean? People see that on the end of movies, producing, directed, and all that. What's producer mean?
Well, I can't really speak to movies so much as I can speak to broadcast television. So what I do, specifically for the morning show that airs from 5 to 7 Central Time, is I pick the stories. I make sure that it fits on time, make sure that they're up to date while keeping an eye out for any breaking news, put in any video or graphics that needs to be added to the show, and basically just put the show together so that the anchor reads it, the reporter adds stories, the director puts it on air, but the producer basically builds the show.
So it's your shows every day.
If you want to say it that way, yeah. I mean, I like to think of it as our shows. It's
well, they've also got to give you something for it to be or not, or you will have to work, right?
Right.
Well, what if they don't show up? Then you have to be creative on maybe some national news? Or?
Yeah, sometimes local news is lighter some days, especially coming back from a weekend, and we expand to regional, tri-states. WTBY reaches parts of Florida, Georgia, and not just Alabama.
Right.
So we might cover some regional news or preview some upcoming events, like from our community calendar, cover some national news, and of course, we'd like to have people in for live interviews. Like this one.
Well, now let's back up just a little bit now. How old are you, can I ask?
Yes, that's fine. I'm 32.
32. Now, your original home is?
Grew up mostly in Hueytown, Alabama. That's outside of Birmingham.
How did you end up, I know you went to school at Troy. How did you end up at Troy?
I knew that they had a very good broadcast program, and I had family that lived in that area. So I went there, and their broadcast television station, Trojan Vision, is student-run, student-produced, student-directed, and student-anchored. So not only did I have the chance to work with equipment behind the scenes, like cameras and stuff, but I also did weather. I did even a little sports, anchored news, did some reporting, all kinds of stuff there. Yes.
Oh, well, how did you, if you're in Hueytown in Birmingham with all those fancy stations up there, how did you hear about the broadcast area that Troy had?
It's just I had some friends that went down there, and it just has a really good reputation. And it's,
what does broadcast program mean? What does that? Broadcast means what goes out on the air, but broadcast program, what would that mean?
The broadcast journalism program?
Yeah.
Well, there you can get a degree in broadcast journalism from Troy University. And like I said, they have a student-run TV station. They have some, professors that will teach you about how to work behind the scenes, or how to put together a news story as a reporter, or how to write for TV news, or ethics of news media, and that kind of thing.
Do you back up now and say, that professor that told this, it was close to right, but here's really the way you got to do it to make it work?
I don't want to say anything bad about my professor.
I didn't say bad. You just say they must have done it a long time ago.
You build on what you learned college with your own experience. Yes, so their valuable knowledge plus what I've learned in my own experience.
Well, I've been to the station many times, but you're not in the room where the announcers and the anchors and the pictures and the weather. Where are you?
During the show, I'm in the control room with the director. And then, I can see all the screens of not only what's on the air, but what every camera is showing, what every feed is showing, so that we know what it looks like.
Feed means there's the pictures, here's some more video. Mm-hmm. Feed would be something other than what the cameras are.
Say we've got a feed from one of our reporters from Live on the Scene, or we've got a satellite feed from, WTBY is a CBS affiliate, so sometimes they'll have a feed of like a shot of something going on, or just a nice static shot of something.
Well, I think you like weather.
I have always had a passion for weather. I got into it because I used to be really scared of severe weather. It used to give me panic attacks and stuff. And one story I always go back to, as far as really getting into not only weather but broadcasting, is in middle school. There was severe weather, knocked the power out. The principal was coming to calm it down, and he came into the class and was basically just talking about where they were and asked if anybody knew where they were. And I raised my hand because I'd watched the severe weather coverage that morning, and told them, they were going through this county at this speed and stuff. He called me in the front of the class, talked a while, and eventually I started doing weather on the morning announcements at my middle school. did afternoon announcements too, and I later did weather on the high school as well. So, and then that helped. That and watching severe weather and watching the Weather Channel and stuff helped get me over my fear. And now people will ask me, hey, what's the weather doing and stuff.
Well, Ivan said Monday morning when I was there, he said, I hate summertime weather. I said, why? He said, everybody knows it's going to be 90 degrees and no rain. So he said the only reason they watch, I guess, is they're going to go fishing or something. He said, but he said summer is not creative enough as the wintertime or fall or spring. You agree?
Well, I mean, it does have its patterns where there's less dynamic weather going on. We are approaching hurricane season, so that's always something you can keep an eye on. And there's active weather elsewhere. And, you keep people informed on how the hot weather could affect the crops or how it could affect the lake and river levels, like you mentioned with the fishing and stuff. So, I mean, it may just be 90 and sunny on the surface, but of course there's a lot going on. There's always weather.
Does it bother you when it says there's no weather today?
Yeah, I mean...
There's weather every day.
Yeah.
There might not be stormy or rainy or sunshiny, but there's weather every day.
Right. It's like when somebody says, you tell them there's a 50% chance of rain, and it's raining where they are. And it's like, well, it's a 100% chance of rain now. It's like, well, I mean, it's for that entire forecast area.
So if they say 50% chance, that means your chances are, it might rain in that area, but you might not get it 50%, or means 50% chance that it rains somewhere.
In the area, it's like there's a 50% chance of that entire area getting rain.
Well, last week, Sean, we got at home maybe 10 minutes of rain, but it had to be an inch, probably not. But it felt like it. I mean, and then when we came outside, it was not wet much anymore. We come downtown, it hadn't rained at all.
Yeah,
no
especially in Florida. I know one time I was driving through Florida, and it wasn't this area. It was like more down in the peninsula. But it was more like raining on one side of the road and dry on the other. So you sometimes, especially in the summer, you'll get those pop-up showers that can be very, very small.
Well, I was in Hawaii visiting grandchildren. The only reason I went was to see the new baby, but we went a couple of times, my wife and I, to see grandchildren. And so I had a Jeep. My son, he had a Jeep. So he said, drop me off at work and you ride the Jeep. And I said, you're not going to put the top up? He said, no. I said, is it going to rain? He said, yes. I said, well, no top. He said, you'll be dry in 10 minutes. It'll rain 5 minutes, you'll be dry in 10. So you're riding along and it starts raining and you do it. Well, how do they know which model to use in the weather? I know people, you get that asked often.
Oh, well, it all depends. I mean, I'm not a certified meteorologist, so I can't speak with as much expertise as, say, someone like on our weather team. But some model, you've got models that from American computers and models and European, Japanese, and all kinds of things that forecast different things. And some are better at other things, like some are better in the tropics, and some are better at severe storms and rain and so on. So they usually just kind of like, they have what's called an ensemble, which kind of puts a lot of the stuff together. And they kind of do that, and you learn, you instinct of like, okay, usually here in our area it's kind of like this or kind of like that, and Weather Service and a whole bunch of other sources and stuff like that.
Well, let me ask you this at the station there. Upstairs are the bosses, and the middle floor there is where the studio is, and then you're on the same floor but across the hall?
The second floor is where the newsroom is, and that's where, before I go downstairs for the show when it's on, I am in the newsroom. I go in early, so usually I'm the only one there for a while before our morning reporter comes in, our morning anchor comes in, morning meteorologist come in. That's on the second floor. Normally during the day it's full of reporters, producers and stuff and the like. And then downstairs, the control room is across from the studio. Yeah. Our building is actually an old hotel, and our studio used to be a ballroom.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
It works, I know that.
Yeah.
Well, we got some pictures that we're going to put up. We'll just put them up one at a time, and when they go up, let's just talk about those. All right, what is that?
That is my laptop. That is where I work. That's the computer I do most of my producing on upstairs. That's my desk. Actually, it's just connects to various programs. The program you see there is iNews. That is the program I actually use to build the show.
The what now?
iNews.
iNews. Okay, I wanted to hear that, yes.
Basically, it lets me pick the stories, put them in, type them out. You've got scripts. You can put in the little graphic set on the right-hand side of the screen. I've got a graphic up. and it lets you put all the
What is that on the left? All the video, I mean, all the screens? Or is that pictures of your
that's
old girlfriend?
I have one girlfriend.
One
now.
girlfriend,
That's
okay.
Those are just pictures from my college days and pictures of like
Real
things from my
pictures of you,
newscasts.
okay.
Yeah, they're like there's like a glass cover on the table.
All right, so they
and I
can
put
see
some
them, but
pictures
don't
under
touch
the
them.
desk.
All right,
It's like
next
memorabilia.
picture, if you will.
That is the newsroom. You know, I was telling you about the newsroom,
Right.
and that's again. when
That's
it's
up on
empty.
the next floor, isn't it?
Yes, that's on the second floor of
Yeah.
our studios.
I've been up
My
there.
desk is in the bottom left corner, and then you've got desks all for reporters. Now, the anchor's desk is on the side, on the right-hand side,
Yeah.
but you've either got desks for reporters and producers and
So
stuff.
we see on TV that room every time they do a newspaper story, you know, where they're in there doing
In the
getting their news
newsroom?
and all. They're usually
Yeah,
more
there's a
crowded than that.
There's a camera on like the right-hand side that points. See where that 4 logo is?
Yeah.
It says 4. It points toward there, and sometimes they'll say, "I'm live in the newsroom with this latest update," because sometimes they'll do
Yeah.
reports from other parts of the building.
How many times do y'all live when it says live? Is it always live?
If it says live, we're live. Now, there are things that are called look lives. Now, look live is we don't say it's live, but it's like we have the anchor,
Make
and
it
they'll
look.
be like, "So we're going to find out what's happening, Lisa," and then it'll be a recorded tape of
Oh,
Lisa, who's the
yeah.
name of our morning reporter,
Right.
but it will look like it's live,
Right.
because it'll be like they'll toss to them, and then they'll like, "Yes, thank you, I'm
Thank
here."
you, and then go back to you. Very
Uh-huh,
good.
but it's all pre-recorded. That's called a look live, but we don't say in the corner that it's live
Right.
unless it's legitimately
Well, I
live.
told you one time I put live on a ball game. All right, let's go to the next picture, if you will. I put live one time in a ball game, and then somebody called me in a few hours and said, "I'm down here at the gym, and there's nobody in the gym. You're running that ball game live." I said, "No idea." All right, what is that?
That is our studio. That's where the news comes from, and that's kind of a behind-the-desk view where you show the cameras. Our cameras are robotic. Basically, the way that they move is, the way it works is, to basically run it down, I pick a kind of shot that I want. Say I want the anchor to have a monitor behind her, or a little graphic on the side, or her just looking at the
Straight
camera.
on, yeah.
I pick that out. Then the director picks out what camera will make that work, and they code it, and using the iNews program. And then every time that the director goes down the little computer program, the camera will move by itself. There's no cameraman out there at this studio.
It's already programmed.
They'll have it every morning. Some are pre-programmed shots we use every day.
Yeah.
But then they'll be like, "Okay, we need shot number 12 on camera 2," and then they'll code it. I don't know director, so I don't exactly know how the coding process works entirely. But basically, there are presets for the cameras, and then they'll like code that in, and that way when it goes from one story to the next, the camera will spin and it will be in the right place.
Well, we talked about here in the studio at the college going robot, and we probably should have. Because Eric's back there, I think he's got one student helping him now, but, you know, if you had that fixed, he came out here how many times? Twice before we started the show resetting cameras. He could have redone that in the back totally.
Mhm.
He could have focused or f-stop or directional, you know, I guess.
From the robotic cameras, there's a board in the back where the director can adjust the brightness or the gain,
Everything.
focus it, zoom in, zoom out, and stuff like that, just from the back,
Yeah.
without even having to touch the cameras
All
themselves.
right, what do we got here now? That is still in the newsroom.
Yes, that's the weather center, the Fort Warren Storm Center, and that's look where the meteorologists are. There's a lot of screens that show. There's a Doppler radar, which TBY has one on our roof.
Right.
We've had one for a while, and then various other computer graphics and stuff. But you ever see the meteorologist like standing there like during severe weather coverage or before they go take the graphics? That's
Yeah,
where they are.
where he's standing. All right, next.
And that is where I am during the show. That is the control room that I mentioned.
It's called a what?
The control room.
Oh, just the control room, not
Yeah.
the name of the control room, but just control
Yeah,
room.
see the screen on the bottom right? That's where I sit with a little microphone. That allows me to talk to the anchors during the
Yeah.
show, tell them how much weather time is left and the like. And then the director sits up toward the front, and
Yeah.
that's where
Well,
he is
he
sitting.
sitting watching the screen?
Yes, and he's got multiple boards.
And
and
he's got a
computers.
board in front of him to make the decisions.
And then there's also a seat for an assistant director of,
Do
in
we always
case.
have an assistant director?
Usually they like to have one in there. They'll sometimes be working on unrelated stuff, but sometimes they'll be there in case they need help to tune in a live shot,
Yeah.
answer a phone call from the boss. that
Like
kind
a
of thing.
pilot and a co-pilot.
Yes,
You're right.
it never hurts to have one.
I heard that. All right, next. And here you are doing
The weather at Trojan.
weather at Troy.
Yes.
At Troy.
Yes, I was. That's one thing I mainly did a lot of. A lot of people didn't want to volunteer when they did weather.
Well, is it because you've got to wing it?
There's no script in weather. Now we had some really great people. When I say that, several people did do it, but I just was like, any chance to do anything in this station, I basically jumped at. And a lot of sense that there was weather people and Hyde
Yeah.
I did. So the graphics, fun fact, the graphics were put together in PowerPoint. No fancy weather graphics software.
No movement back in that day. Is that what you're saying?
Well, you could make it move.
Yeah.
I interned with a weather team out of Montgomery, and they kind of inspired me.
WSFA?
Yes, and they kind of inspired me to make graphics, and you can make things move in PowerPoint. And again, it's not it's super advanced, but I like to get as creative as I could for college TV weather, and sometimes I would get 4 or 5 minutes worth, and I would just take it away.
If you're not good with a computer, you're not going to make it in weather.
Or any broadcast really, because
I guess
you have to edit, you have to write, you have to
Yeah.
find information online, use social media. So
How many more pictures we got, Eric? Let's see what we got. We'll end it with this one.
all right, yes, this is some of our news team. This is a little bit before we have our new anchor Marie. She's not in there.
Right.
I recently got a picture of her in there, but this is Lisa, Dylan, Layton, Evan, and myself on the studio set around Christmas. So you can see this picture's a few months
Why
old.
is there such a change of people? What have your
It's
opinion
just broadcast.
You gotta move up.
Dothan is a small market. A lot of people like to get experience there and then move on up. Some people will stay because they like the station, they like the people, they like the locals, or they live around here. Others will want to. We get a lot of people from other parts of the country, and they
Yes.
want to work their way back home, or they want to work their way somewhere away from home and go,
Yeah.
find somewhere else.
What are your plans for 20 years from now? You want to manage the whole station?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what I'll be doing. I just hope that I'm doing, something that I love, whether it be still producing news or being on camera, doing weather, or something entirely different.
Yeah.
I just right now I'm just focusing on making the morning show at WTY great every day. And
Do you ever get asked to stay at lunchtime and help with somebody?
every so often, somebody gets sick, somebody needs me to fill in. I've filled in on almost every show there from time to time. For a while, I worked in the evenings.
Yeah, I
I've
saw you
filled
on
in on
the evening.
weekends,
Yeah.
and I've even done weather a couple of times. So I fit in here, there, wherever I need to.
So when you send your resume out, are you going to send the weather out with it?
Well, I had a reel. Every broadcaster, student or broadcast veteran, in between, whether you're going into the business or you already have a job,
Yeah.
you make a reel, and the more you can have on the reel, the better. So I would want to put everything. I applied for a producer position with reels of not only just writing and stuff, but also weather, news, sports, filming, reporting, everything. The more that you can do, and that it's especially these days in demand. Like our reporters, they operate their own cameras out in the field. They're called MMJs, or multimedia journalists. So they also
I learned that. I didn't know that.
One-man bands, basically, where
Yeah.
they film their stuff, they get their interviews, they edit it, and then they put it on. So,
It takes longer than people realize, don't it?
oh yeah, there's a lot of work. Even the little stories where we're talking about the little parade going down the street for 20 seconds, they have to contact people, they have to go out, and they have to shoot it, and they have to pick the footage and edit it and make sure it's right and put it in. So,
Which is it take the longest of all the things?
I mean,
Interview, edit, or do it?
well, I mean, with the current, I haven't gone out and shot my own stories since college. But I would imagine that just, especially if you're driving far away, sometimes that can be it. Probably the actual shooting doesn't take very long. It's like you've got to get there, and you got to come back, and you got to write it, and you got to listen to what they say, and pick out the soundbite that you want, especially for people doing a package, which is,
Why do they always just pick one sentence? Because that's all they need?
Well, the way they teach us is, you want short, sweet, and effective. So, and then you don't want to be too long because if certain stories, not every story is going to interest everybody, viewer.
Yeah.
Because, a new restaurant in Level Plains, somebody over in Ob is not going to necessarily care about that too much.
Yeah.
But, someone will. But, and then you've got stories like, say, we recently covered part of Jackson County. We covered Two Egg and what is the origin of the name. We also covered Screamer, Alabama, and Blue Springs, just looking into why these
Funny
communities
names,
are,
yes.
yeah, what they are, and then also what they have to offer. So that can also bring an interest to a small community that might not, even if, say, another story about that community might not particularly interest somebody.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Anchors, they've got to be teleprompter readers, but more prompting than reading. Just being able to read does not make you a good anchor. You've
Right.
got a sort of Maria there it's now. Man, she is so good because I'm watching her read the teleprompter, and sometimes it's not anywhere near the teleprompter because it is. She used it as an outline, but she can embellish just a little bit to make it sound more normal.
Right, and you always want to come off natural. That's the whole thing. We basically want it to be like, yeah, we're just talking to you, a conversation, in a professional presentation, but a conversational story about what's going on in Dothan or the Wiregrass or the world, wherever. So, we have, when a reporter writes the script, and then I go in to produce it and make changes, and the anchor will go in to read it, and then they'll tweak it a little bit to make it more comfortable for what they like to say.
Sure.
Yeah. So there's a process, and that's why it's like a whole show, a whole team of people to make a show good.
Well, I don't know how many years I've been doing the morning show. You've been there since day one.
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been in Dothan?
I've worked at TVY since March of 2012, so over 5 years.
Yeah. Well, I'm at 10 years almost, if not 10 years. But when I'm doing it from here and I've got the earpiece in, sometimes they'll say 15 seconds. That means they need to cut me.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I heard you say stretch it.
Right, and that's
What does
part
that
of
mean?
that's part of producing is you want the show to end on time where they don't get cut off at the end, but there's not a whole bunch of time at the end where they're basically just having to.
Ad lib.
Right. A little ad lib is good, especially in a morning show. Morning shows
Right.
are meant to be more conversational, a little more light and relaxed. But, you just want to make sure that the timing is right. And sometimes with live interviews, that's what's great about, say, Talk of the Town or live interviews or weather, is that it helps with the pre-produced stories like, okay, we've got a little extra time, so weather can go longer. This interview, you can ask one more question. Or if we had some breaking news and we had to condense things,
Yeah.
It's like, okay, let's trim down this interview. I know I had to do that with you one day when we
Sure.
had some breaking news.
Yeah, that was fun.
Severe weather coverage, in fact. And
How much time do I usually get? 2 minutes?
2:30 is what I usually
2:30?
allocate. 2:30 to 3 for all of our live interviews. And I
Yeah.
think it's a good round figure because you've got about 30 seconds to introduce them with little animation and Marie talking about who and what
Yeah.
you are, little like greeting, and then like 2 minutes to really get out your information, and then like a 15-second wrap up.
Well, you
that
never said to me personally or on the air that I was the best one of Talk of the Town.
kind of- Well, I'll let our viewers. I'm sure every.
I'm kidding, Sean.
I'm sure
Don't put you on the
every-
spot here.
I'm sure
'Cause
every
they're gonna
community.
see this.
Every community thinks you're the best. I'm sure Marianna thinks you're the best. I'm sure Enterprise thinks theirs is the best, and so on.
Yeah.
But you help get out information and
Well, I enjoy it.
Stuff about the
people
community.
in town like it. I think
and maybe you draws other people in Marianna. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, there are sports teams going on. Let's go watch
Yeah.
them. Or,
Well, she just says she wants that to run and she wants people to watch it. She don't want them to change channels when she sees somebody on there.
right.
Because we got professional people sitting like you and behind the desk reading and anchoring, and they don't want somebody to come on Redneck City and ruin the whole show. Well, Sean, I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you being a friend. I appreciate all the work you do at Channel 4.
Well, thank you very much, sir. I appreciate you letting
Yeah,
me
well,
come in
thank
to
you.
talk to you.
All right, we'll do it. What if we want to have a class to come to go tour? Do it at 10 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah, you just contact
Come
our
ahead.
station, and then we'll plan it out. One of our creative people, or one of creative services, or somebody like that will give tours. We've had school groups, young and old, come in, and from nursing homes to elementary schools. So.
Sure. Can't beat it.
Mm-hmm.
Folks, you've seen it right here at Chipola College Television. Sean Sporman there with Channel 4 in Dothan. He does a bunch of jobs. He says he's a producer, but let me tell you, he does it all. But I appreciate him. But most of all, I appreciate your watching and supporting Chipola College Television.